That's the first load of cedar for the ceiling. There's 80 boards here. I'll see how far that gets me, and if I need to get more, I'll do that after tending to these. So I got my work cut out for me, but at least I'm gonna build some muscles. This is the second day of me starting to build out my bathroom. Now, I had a contractor come in who insulated the ceiling and put down a new subfloor in here. If you've not seen that video, be sure to stick around to the very end where I will have it linked for you. You can also find it and many other videos in my entire playlist, which all of my videos are in order, so you can start at the very beginning and follow my journey up to the present time. That's also linked at the end of most of my videos. But today I am going to be insulating the bays on the sidewalls of this room. This is an addition onto my cabin, and I am turning this room into the bathroom. My cabin does not have a bathroom in it currently. When I first bought the cabin, there was actually a bathroom here. However, that bathroom was one of the most disgusting rooms in the cabin because there was a squirrel and who knows what other critters using it as their bathroom. And it also was not functioning. So when my son was here a couple years ago, he helped me tear out all of the fixtures as well as all the plumbing, and I made this a dry cabin, which totally suits my needs. So yes, the upcoming bathroom will not have plumbing either. I'll explain that as I proceed with the bathroom build. But I then turned this room into a pantry, and that is way more functional and meets my needs more than that first bathroom ever did. I want it to be rustic but elegant in here, and I have a lot of work cut out for me. If you watch the video that I just mentioned, you're going to see what this room looked like when I first got here, and it's come a long way, but it has a long way still to go. Yesterday, I started to insulate these bays, and I'm just utilizing some foam that I had left over from when I did my icebox build, and then some other sheets of foam that I had on hand as well. I'm going to try to utilize as many of these scrap pieces before cutting into these full sheets, whether they're the half sheets or these full 4x8s. Just try to conserve what I have, and that way I have them for future projects if I need them. It was a lot of work of cutting and measuring twice and cutting twice. I am using the same hot knife that I used when I did my ice box, and this is 2-inch foam. It has an R value of 10. All right, so now I'm just going to apply my bead of adhesive here, going all the way around. And I'm not going too close to the edge because it's going to squeeze out, but of course it would help if I was actually getting it on the foam. All right, now's the moment of truth. And in she goes. In there and not going anywhere. You know what they say, measure twice and cut once. Well, last night I was doing it with little light, and so some of my cuts had to be made twice. Today I'm doing this in the daylight, so hopefully I'll have better success. I have both sides to finish. I got about 6 bays done last night before I ran out of daylight. Today my plan is to finish insulating the bays, cover them with vapor barrier, and then begin to install the ceiling. I'm hoping that by the end of this weekend, I have all of the ceiling planks up and can start moving on to other projects within this room. Like I said, there's many surprises of things that I've not talked about that are going to be taking place in here. So you'll have to stay tuned to see what I have up my sleeve. All right, I guess I better get busy. I've been able to insulate all the bays up to this point without much of an issue. All I've done is measure across the bottom and the short and long sides, and then connect those two top points to get my angle. But this particular bay has an additional angle in it, and so that's what I'm looking at right there. And that comes from this oddly shaped bay, and again that 2x4 continuing on up, causing this odd angle in this bay that I'm currently working on. For most of these pieces of insulation, I've been able to use a T-square to mark my lines. But as the boards are getting longer and longer, I am now having to use a cedar board to make my cuts. And that has worked out fantastic. So here you can see the line that I just marked using the cedar board as my straight edge. And then this first line here is the one that I freehanded. This is the actual line. And then where that additional 2x4 is coming across the top of this. So instead of doing it like I've done all the other bays where it's just a straight angle, this one has that little extra notch. The cedar board is also coming in handy to help weigh down these longer pieces as I try to work off the edge of my sawhorses here. Putting everything to use in as many ways as possible to get this job done. All right, trick is to hold your breath while you're doing this because, again, fumes. I know you guys are going to say I should probably be wearing some type of a mask, a respirator, or something. I'm not. The door behind the camera is wide open. Plenty of ventilation in here. This is very hot, again. All right, now I'm going to do a test fit of this and then get that piece glued in and installed. I had to make a couple small trims, but not much. I don't even know if you can see me because I can't really see the camera. But if I don't bring the whole cabin down and trying to get this in here, this piece I'm actually not going to glue into place. I probably didn't actually need to glue any of these because, like I said, might add some extra insulation in front of them. And once the cedar's up, it's not like they're falling out. So kind of a redundancy on my part. But this piece, definitely not getting any glue. Just need to force that puppy in there. Top angle was spot on. It was just that this 2x4 is a little bit warped, and now it fits like a glove. Maybe a very tight glove, but a glove nonetheless. It only took me 4 hours to finish all of these bays on both sides. So I feel pretty good about that because it took me about 2 hours basically to do the 6 bays I did yesterday. So not filming helped a lot. But this is all done now. So now I'm going to clean up in here because I've made a big mess. And then I'm going to start working on the ceiling. So I am going to be using cedar fence pickets to do the ceiling in here. And this lighter board happens to be one of them. This other board here, this is just a beam within this room. But you can see that there's a lot of contrast between the logs in the cabin and the cedar picket. And I'm not sure that I'm a fan of that color at all. It just stands out way too much to me. And yes, some are going to be a little darker and some are going to be a little lighter, but they all have that yellowy, beigey tint to them. And as you can see, the logs in here are red. So I'm considering staining the logs, and I've tested, the pickets, and I've tested several colors on here. This top one is Provincial, then Gunstock, Early American, Red Mahogany, Gel Stain, Kona Gel Stain, and then Teak. And I happen to like the Teak the best against the color of the logs in the cabin. But here's my problem. When I stained one board with Teak, I realized something. Is that yes, while it does make the grain pop, every board is going to be the same color. Every board is going to look exactly like the other board. So I'm really not sure what I'm going to be doing in here. I really need to think about it. So after taking a good look at the sample board that I did with the teak stain, I decided that I was going to go a different route. I happen to have some polyurethane on hand, and after applying it to a sample board, I loved what it did for the board. It really brought out the colors in the board, and it made the boards have some variance between one board to the next, which was exactly what I was looking for. But I did lose a day's worth of work because I had to go into town to get more supplies. Now these are those same boards that I showed at the beginning of this segment. And as you can see, they're a lot darker. That green is really popping on those now. And I personally think that this helps to enliven these boards. But as you can see by this array of boards that I have set up in front of me, the polyurethane did a lot to make these colors pop. I have an array from everything from dark browns to more ambery colored boards. The knots are showing. They're beautiful. I love the grain. What I want to do is I want to figure out where level is on my wall here, as this is the starting point. So I'm going to take 2 screws, one at this end of the wall and one at the opposite end of the wall, and I'm going to run a chalk line, and I'm going to figure out where level is, and then that is where my boards are going to sit. So I ran my chalk line as I just shown you, and I took my level up here, put it against that chalk line, tight up against the joist and this top plate, and what I'm finding is a couple of things. One is I'm only about 1/8 of an inch off, less than 1/8 of an inch off over the course of a 15-foot wall. So it's really, really close to level. Really, really close. Now I could just go over there and readjust that screw and move the chalk line, but there's so much plastic in here and bits of insulation tucked up behind this plastic where the joists meet that top plate, that what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my first board, eyeball it to level, lightly tack it in, take my second board, do the same thing, check level at that point. If I'm good to go, I'm going to continue on, and if not, I'll adjust as I go. But figuring out where level is really isn't that difficult normally. It's just there's too much crap up here behind the plastic, and all this plastic that's folded over and everything is just causing me to fit. So based upon what I saw though, it's really, really close. That is as close to level as I'm probably going to get. Looking at this, no, right now, yeah, that's completely level. So, and all I did was rest it on that screw over there, which I still have in, held it up, and then just gave it one tack there, one tack over here, and I'm level. So now I'm going to continue on, do a couple more same way. If it continues to appear to be level, I'm good to go. Little hack for you if you're trying to measure across a big span of space like I am, and you can't get your tape measure to stay still because you have nothing to latch it onto, is I'm just taking this piece of scrap cedar here, and I have it tucked up tight in the corner, tucked up right against the screw I put in earlier for my chalk line. I'm just going to lightly tack this into place, and now that gives me a place to put my tape measure so that I can go ahead and run it across to the other side. And this way, I know how long I need to cut this next board to, and it's 93.5, and it looks like I'm off to a good start. If it all goes this smoothly, I'm going to be very happy. So my next board is 92.25. The last one that I cut for the other side was 93.5. So I'm pretty close to dead center on where that joist is that I'm going off of. I was also fortunate enough to have a friend of mine run over his miter saw, and so I didn't have to drag my heavy one back upstairs. The nice thing about this miter saw is it has this laser line here, so I can make sure that my line that I just drew is perfectly straight with where the cut's going to be. So I have the exact same measurement from this board to this board. And now that I got this up in here, I am just going to go ahead and grab my pin nailer and get this tacked up. Now, you might be asking, why am I doing equal length boards with the seam running right up the middle of the room? Isn't that going to look awful? No. And the reason for this is twofold. If I had done a staggered pattern on the ceiling, I would actually be wasting board feet. And I cannot afford to do that at $7 and some odd cents per board. And I estimate that it's going to take about 86 boards to do the entire flat part of the ceiling here. This way, I'm not wasting board feet. And this seam is going to be hidden by a faux beam that'll be running up the middle of the ceiling here. And I'll do another faux beam centered off the two sides. And because of the variegated pattern in here, it'll look like it's a staggered pattern anyhow, without actually wasting board feet. It's taken me forever to get to this point, and I decided that I'd just start doing one side and then come back and do the other side. That way I can make two cuts at once. But the problem that I'm having is with this board that I have tacked up right above my head, this last board here. And that is that the board is bowed. So it's actually arching towards the peak of the ceiling. And when I stand underneath it, I can see the plastic and the red tape coming through the gap that is there, starting about 6 inches in to about, I don't know, halfway through. If I had black plastic on the ceiling like I do on the sides, that would be a non-issue because you wouldn't even really see the plastic. It just looked like a shadow. I'm going to try to fix this by using a scrap piece of cedar tacked up and then put this on the end of my board and tighten it up. See if I could bring that together, because if I don't fix the bow in that board, say I left it and was like, I'll just live with the plastic showing through, which I don't want to do. But if I did, it means that it's going to cause an issue where the next one is going to be teetering on that bowed section. So this is what I've come up with. Hope it works. That did it. That gap is not as apparent. There is still a little teeny tiny gap, but there is throughout this whole process. What I'm trying to do is minimize the big gaps. And luckily these boards that I bought, I actually bought them off of somebody else. I didn't just go pick them up at Home Depot. So they've already set out for a year. They're already shrunk down. A lot of the moisture is gone out of these boards. So I'm not going to have to worry about too much shrinkage over the course of time, luckily. But it's taken me several hours just to get to this point, so back to work I go. This is a workout, lifting this heavy gun over my head, trying to hold this board up and push them up into the rafters. But I think I've reached the last board height that I can feasibly reach with my 3-step step stools. So I'm gonna have to transition over to the big ladder that's behind me. And even then it might be too tall for what I need to do. I might be reaching out. But one thing about this is make sure you have ample ladders on hand if you're doing a vaulted ceiling in cedar plank or tongue and groove or whatever you chose, because you're gonna need them. So. I stopped working last night because I was starting to run into a bit of an issue. And maybe you can see it if you look over my shoulder here and continue on up. And that is that the higher I get, the more the wall starts to creep towards the east. You can see right about here that it stops being straight and it starts going that direction. And the reason for that is that these joists should be 16 on center, and while they may have started that way at the bottom, as it continues up the peak of the ceiling here, this joist at least is starting to creep that way, which means that I'm losing a few inches of board foot on each run as I go up. And it's also becoming time consuming to go up and down the ladder to check my positioning. You know, I run it up, tack it into place where I think it needs to be, check my positioning, and then come back down. But that's becoming more and more of an issue the higher I get up the ladder. And so what I'm going to do is just take a piece of cedar plank, tack it along halfway through the joist up here. That way I ensure that I have tackable space for the boards that need to go on this blank side, and it'll make it easier to continue to do the other side here, because I can just abut my plank up against that jig and ensure that everything is golden without having to come up and down the ladder a million times. So I decided to go with a shorter plank for my jig because it would be nearly impossible to eyeball this from just one step ladder. Again, if I had scaffolding, this would be a lot easier, but I don't. And so I'll have to move this after every, 3-4 planks, but at least now I guarantee that I have tackable surface for both sides of the ceiling. Well, easier said than done. I mean, it is giving me a line, but this board is a little bit bowed, and so it's hanging off of there. I think if my board was straight, this would work. But yeah, I'm gonna find one that's a little bit straighter to do this with. But this is the concept. Yeah, this board is got a definite curve to it. I don't know if you can see that, but it is angling down towards the other side of the room here. Let me do this one more time. Yeah, that is going to work like a charm. The only issue that I have now is that this board is bowed upward. So instead of having a bow or being warped, this board is bowing that way. So I'm gonna need to do my little jig thing again. It's always something. This is going to take me forever. My plan was to have this ceiling finished by the end of this video, but at this rate, I'll still be putting the ceiling up by the time this video should have released. Fun. Well, I am almost done with one side. I have one plank left to go in, as you can see by the little bits of red tape sticking out over my head here, but that's going to have to wait. Because before I can put in the last plank on either side of this here, I need to do something about this plywood wall behind me. It is getting a different treatment than the rest of the ceiling is. That wall is actually leaning inwards towards the bathroom. And so it's going to get something different. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. It's a surprise. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do that in this week's video because I'm waiting for something to still arrive, so I can complete that. But I'm going to finish the rest of the ceiling in here, and just like that, it's done. Well, almost. While this portion of the ceiling is done, I still have that special treatment on the plywood section. The beams need to go up. Oh, and the sides need to get done, as well as all the trim work. Once that's done, then I can move on to other things such as the floors and much, much more. As I mentioned earlier, plans have changed in this room, and so there are a few surprises that will be shown in upcoming videos. I hope that you'll join me for all of that, and I hope that if you've made it this far in the video that you like what you saw in today's video, that you've given this video a thumbs up, that you've subscribed. And I also want to say thank you to those of you who are watching right now, and a special thank you to all of my channel members. I look forward to seeing your comments, and I hope that you look forward to seeing these outtakes that I have here for you. Make sure to stick around for those, and I'll leave a link to the video where this bathroom plan was all detailed out at the end of this video, so make sure that you stick around for that as well so you can watch that if you haven't already. Until next time, please stay safe and take care. When all else fails, just beat it into submission. I kid, don't do that. Well, it's day two. Day two. I'm innocent. I'm not guilty. Yeah, fun. It's always fun when you're doing something and you're trying to film yourself doing it and it doesn't go right. That's my fave. I guess it shows I'm human. I'm too close. I'm going to have to move my ladder. I moved it sideways, but not further back. Lovely. Whether you've contributed through a YouTube membership, Patreon, PayPal, or you've donated to the channel in other ways, your support means a lot to me. So with that being said, that concludes today's video. I want to thank you for watching and joining me today. As always, stay safe and take care until the next time, and I'll see you then.